3.7 million isn't a small amount, but it's just a minor issue. However, affecting my industry reputation is another matter. As a top-notch assassin, Newt decided to make his employer pay. He immediately contacted the dark web and started tracing the source of the advance payment. The counterattack had begun. In the interim, Newt began investigating the target of the billion-dollar order. He was the richest man in the world. His self-developed software would make all the assets of the wealthy completely transparent. This seriously threatened their privacy. Thus, he successfully enraged a bunch of powerful figures. Meanwhile, Newt was at his son's birthday party. Just when his brother-in-law tried to convince him to invest in a bar, news came from the dark web, informing Newt that the source of the funds had been traced, and the location was in Munich, where the president was assassinated. So, the next moment, he had to leave his family to pursue his payment. He had just returned for a few days, and now he had to leave again. His wife, reluctant, drove Newt to the airport. After watching his wife leave, he didn't head to the boarding hall. Instead, he turned toward the parking lot, got into a taxi, and then removed his wedding ring, becoming the cold-hearted wolf. He arrived at his safe deposit box, took out a passport from many IDs, and, of course, he didn't forget some pocket money. Everything was ready. Newt left the bank and got back into the taxi. But unexpectedly, his wife didn't return home, but instead went to buy a bouquet of flowers. Just as she was leaving, she saw Newt passing by. Even if it was just a side view, she was sure it was her husband, so she called him. But got a voicemail. This made her suspicious of Newt's work. A crisis was approaching. But the crisis wasn't just at home. Mi-6, agent was still tracking Newt. She intended to use an informant to find gunmaker Norman, but while detaining the informant's daughter, accidentally caused the girl's death. This put her at a disadvantage, and because an innocent person died, Mi-6 would face external pressure. Luckily, they had agents to handle such situations, ensuring Mi-6 stays unassociated. Her boss gave her 24 hours to get information from the informant before announcing the girl's death. Although she felt guilty as a professional agent, she called Aileen and lied about rescuing her daughter in exchange for Norman's phone. To save her daughter, Aileen pleaded with her husband to call her brother, Norman, for money to bail their daughter out, though her husband resisted. Aileen knew he would eventually give in. The agent watched the surveillance intently, and from the evidence, they concluded the suspect was a skilled mimic and a right-handed person, using a Browning high-power semi-automatic pistol, which confused them because they could have used the weapon with less recoil. The backpack had a removed logo, perfectly concealing their tracks. Based on these clues, the agent concluded the killer was British, likely a retired British soldier. To break world records, they must have military training. After 2013, the Browning high-power pistol became the standard issue of the British Army. Not only that, the killer's backpack was made by a small British company and sold 8 months ago with no export records. So it confirms both the killer and the weapon maker are British. Due to international issues, her boss urged her to act carefully. Police would announce the girl's death by morning, so she had to gather Norman's information quickly. With Aileen unable to meet assured, the agent could only focus on the killer's identity. The next checks would start with soldiers graduated in the last 10 years. Crisis was approaching, yet Newt was unaware. He got another call from his employer. A woman said the higher-ups agreed to the billion-dollar offer, but they needed to discuss details face-to-face to finalize the deal. If they didn't meet within 48 hours, the order would be cancelled. After a brief 3-second thought, Newt agreed to their terms, on condition they followed his instructions. After all, who would refuse money? Soon the woman received a message while at dinner, and she followed the instructions, leaving the restaurant. Unaware every move she made was being watched by Newt. Though he was within 10 meters of her, she didn't notice a thing. When she sat on the bench, she finally heard a familiar voice. So, their second unofficial meeting began. The employer agreed to the offer, but could only provide a $20 million advance, and it would be paid immediately. The only condition was to finish by month end. Once the software was released at month end, the assassination would be pointless. Newt accepted the task after thinking briefly, promising to start as soon as the funds arrived, and the day was sealed, a successful transaction. The woman suggested using the codename Odin for the target in future communications, and they also